to remind you where we are right now, okay? We are in a series titled Believe the Impossible, and it is my goal to challenge your faith. What is your faith story? Do you believe that God can do the impossible right now in your own personal situation? And so what we've talked about already, let me just recap some of the things. The first week we talked about believing in your calling, that God has called you to walk in obedience and follow him. The second week, we talked about believing in the promise that God has spoken over your life. Do you believe that? Do you believe that God has spoken over you, that there are things in your life that don't make sense in what you see right now, but you have hope for the future because of his word? And then the third week, we talked about believing in the vision. And I love that. And I shared some vision with you guys about the future of this church and where we're heading and what God is doing already. But let me encourage you today. Sometimes when you receive a vision from God, you're like, no way, no way. In fact, maybe you've noticed this before too. When you receive a vision from God, you start to tell other people, they kind of look at you funny, like, oh, bless your heart. Yeah, like that's going to happen for you. Listen, don't worry. Trust the Lord. Trust the Lord. Let him prove it to others. No matter how big or how crazy it may look, believe the vision that God has shown you because it's for a reason. It's to change the lives of others. And then if you were here on the Christmas Eve service, you know that I told you to prepare for the miracle, to prepare that God is about to do something even before you see it. But I don't know if you guys have realized this. The last 4 sermons that I have preached have all been to set a foundation for you to believe God's word. All 4 sermons have been to set a foundation for you to believe that what God has spoken over you is true. His calling, his promise to prepare for the miracle, all of it. And so for the next 4 weeks, here's what I want to do. I kind of want to shift this series. I almost want to call it Believe the Impossible 2.0, because it's time to step into active faith. Okay, God has got your attention. He has spoken it into your situation. Now it is time to move. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7. If you remember, it says, for we live by believing, not by seeing. Tell that to somebody next to you today. We live by believing, not by seeing. I know God is going to do something. I believe in what he's going to do. And today I want to teach you about the subject of commitment. Ooh, commitment is important, especially when walking with God and life gets very difficult. But I do believe out of the book of Psalms, chapter 37, it gives us some clarity of what commitment to the Lord means. Psalms 37, verse 5 and 6 states it like this: commit everything you do to the Lord. When you wake up, pray. When you're driving, pray. When you're dealing with people that you don't even like, pray more, okay? Keep praying. Commit everything that you do to the Lord. And I love this. Trust him, and he will help you. He will make your innocence radiate like the dawn, and the justice of your cause will shine like the noonday sun. Commit everything you do to the Lord. How do you do that? How do you commit everything? It honestly just means this: trust the Lord in everything you do. Trust him. Pray to him. Call out to him when you're happy, when you're sad, when you're angry, when you're having a good time and a bad time. Just commit everything you do to the Lord and trust that what he has for you is good, and then believe it will happen. That's part of the process here. So the title of today's message is this: Believing in Commitment. Believing in commitment. Now, when I say commitment, a lot of us are like, I don't know about that. Because in our culture today, let's be honest, commitment is hard to find. A lot of people no longer value the term commitment. So let me ask you this. What is the definition of commitment? What is the definition? The answer is this: to make certain decisions in advance regardless of what happens in life. Okay, to make certain decisions in advance, regardless of what life looks like right now. You can count on me on this day, at this time. I will be there as long as I'm able and my body is able to move. I am committed to this. You can count on me. But let's be honest. We know the definition of it, but it's kind of difficult to do. It's difficult to keep your word in everything. Some days you feel like it, and you made that commitment on that day because you were happy, and then what always happens? When it's the day that you are to show up, everything goes wrong. You're late, you didn't get coffee, people made you mad, and you're like, do I really want to be there like I said I would? Or do this today because I just don't feel like it. But commitment is not about your feelings. You understand that? Commitment is not about your feelings. It's about what you said you will do and honoring that word. And in the last sermon, I left off with this. Moses and Aaron were convincing the elders of Israel to believe God for the impossible. And if you were here that day, I talked about and taught how Moses and Aaron were on their way. They were prepared for the miracle. They were excited about this. And Moses goes into Egypt and he gathers the elders of Israel together. Now, they're still in bondage and slavery, but he gathers them together. And because he's so prepared for what God is about to do, he's excited to share, hey, listen, God is going to free us. God is going to free us. He's going to take us out of this land. We're going to have a land of our own flowing with milk and honey. Now, a lot of us don't realize this, but in the past, they would not have believed Moses. They would not have believed him because he grew up in the Egyptian ways. He also killed an Egyptian and he ran. They would not have believed him. So what changed? When he showed up, they recognized the anointing of God. You realize that? When he showed up because he was prepared for the miracle, they recognized the anointing of God and they believed. They believed the impossible. Exodus chapter 4, verse 29 through 31. Then Moses and Aaron returned to Egypt and called all the elders of Israel together. And Aaron told them everything that the Lord had told Moses. And then Moses, what did he do? He performed the miraculous signs as they watched. Then the people of Israel were convinced that the Lord had sent Moses and Aaron. And when they heard that the Lord was concerned about them, I love this, and they had seen their misery, they bowed down and worshiped. Why are you here today? Have you been going through something? Dealing with a situation? Trust me, God has seen your misery. God has seen your tears. Even when you feel alone, you are not alone. And God is speaking to you. And in those moments, just like we just had, in those moments, even if life is chaotic, when you worship the Lord, everything changes inside of you. Everything changes. All of a sudden, now you have confidence in what God is about to do. You have this hope. And I pray that you have that today, especially as you leave this house. They bowed down and they worshiped the Lord. Everything was going great until they met Pharaoh, the authority of the land. And Moses wasn't naive. Like, he knew it would not be easy to convince Pharaoh, hey, I'm going to let all my people go because the Lord said to do it. He knew that it would be a battle. But when God speaks it over you, trust me, he will prepare you for that battle as well. Let's look at this together. He was soon challenged by the higher authority of Egypt, the Pharaoh. Exodus chapter 5, verse 1 and 2. After this presentation to Israel's leaders, Moses and Aaron went and spoke to Pharaoh. And they told him, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. You imagine, too, how Moses felt like, hey, Pharaoh. Because remember, Moses was scared to speak. He's like, Pharaoh, we got something to say. Aaron, come on. Come on. God says he's going to speak to you, Aaron. Come on. Like, don't be afraid now. And they said, the Lord says, let my people go so that they may hold a festival in my honor in the wilderness. And listen to the Pharaoh's comments. You ready for this? And just kind of take it in. He said, is that so? Is that so? Who is the Lord? Why should I listen to him and let Israel go? And then he said this, listen. He said, I do not know the Lord. I will not let them go. What do you do? What do you do when God has spoken a promise over your life, but the higher authority around you in this world is challenging that? What do you do when you want to bring your own parents or your own family to Christ, but every time you bring up Jesus, they change the subject because they don't believe that your life has truly been changed? What do you do when you're in a business that you love and you love your position, but now they're asking you to do things that you don't agree with according to the gospel of Jesus Christ? Yet God has spoken a promotion over you maybe, Or God has spoken a blessing over you. Do you still believe that it will come even if you stand up against the business? Listen, let me say it like this. If God has spoken a promotion over you, then stand up. Somehow, some way, he will do it. Your job is not to figure out how it's going to happen. Your job is just to be obedient to what God is doing, okay? And you stand up for the gospel and what he has for you. But I realize it can be very easy sometimes. But remember, what is the definition of commitment? To make certain decisions in advance, regardless of what life brings at you. Now, biblically, let me say it like this. What is the definition according to the Bible? To be committed to Christ. You want to know what it is? You are committed to Christ, no matter the cost, no matter the pain. I am committed to Jesus, no matter how hard, no matter what I lose, because I would rather lose so much in this world and gain so much afterwards in the presence of God. And some of you, though, you hear that and you're kind of like, why would I do something like that? Why would I be that committed to the Lord? Listen, because God has already been committed to you. Every time you walked away, he showed you grace. That's why you're here today. That's why you can still receive his holy presence and forgiveness, because he's never turned you away. The times that you lived in rebellion, you wanted to live completely in your own sin. You have no idea how many times God was protecting you and saving you from the demons that wanted to attack you. And the Son of God paid that ultimate price upon the cross with his own body to give us salvation of our rebellion. Do you understand? God has always been committed to you. Always. And he's telling us as believers, and we should rejoice in this, that we can be committed to him and believe that he can do the impossible. We are saved by Christ. But I do realize this. A lot of believers don't understand this. Did you know that commitment to God is a form of worship to God? Commitment to God is actually a form of worship to God. Let me show you. Romans chapter 12, verse 1 and 2. I plead with you to give your bodies to God, because all that he has done for you, let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind that he will find acceptable. This is truly the way to do what? To worship him, by giving your body to Christ, your life over to Jesus, and making sacrifices. But it's worth it. Why is it worth it? Let's keep going. Do not copy the behaviors or the customs of this world. Underline that. Don't look like this world. Don't copy the behaviors, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. That is the definition of repentance, changing the way you think to follow the Lord. And listen, here's where it gets really good. Then you will learn to know God's will for you. You want to know God's will for your life? You got to sacrifice. You got to be committed to the Lord, because he was first committed to you. And listen, God, I love how it ends it, which is good and it's pleasing and it's perfect. You are going to give up some things in this life, but in the end, it will be perfect. What God has for you, it's worth it. It is worth it to make these sacrifices. But as I started praying over this message, I started to ask myself, how do you stay committed in a culture that no longer values commitment? How do you stay committed today? Because let's be honest, most people don't care about the words that they speak or what they say or what they tell you they'll do. And a lot of people today will not make a commitment to put a ring on the finger, but they'll agree to sleep with each other. Let's just be real for a second. They'll agree to do all these other things, but put a ring on the finger. And I've actually had people go as far as saying, you know what, that's bondage. It's bondage? Commitment in marriage, or commitment to God, or commitment to other people? No, you just don't want to be selfless. That's really what it's all about. Because I've realized too, the same people that say they can't be committed to God or committed to a relationship, guess what? They can be committed to money. A lot of people today have given up so much of their integrity just to be committed to money, or that position, or that fame. And it's not worth it. It is not worth it at all. And God is warning us, He's saying, give me your heart so that I can change that in you. And I want to change your perspective, because it's also tempting in this world to do that. It's tempting to follow the world. And we talked about this multiple times, how sometimes you see people and it's like they're living the life. And God, I'm stuck here in my situation. I'm trying to be obedient, and it's hard. So let me change your perspective today. And let me ask you this. In fact, I'd love for you to write it down if you can. Who do you want to become? Who do you want to become? Because here's a shocking truth. You ready for this? The way you value commitment determines who you become. The way you value your commitments, your word, your commitment to God determines who you become. How so? Let me show you. I have 2 points right here. Point A, it seems simple, but we're going to dive deep. Point A, lack of commitment makes you selfish. Lack of commitment will make you selfish. Here's a clear warning straight out of the book of James. James chapter 3, verses 14 through 16. Guess what? If you are bitterly jealous, and if there is selfish ambition in your heart, do not cover up the truth with boasting and lying. For jealousy and selfishness are not God's kind of wisdom. When you live only for yourself and you're self-centered, you'll notice you'll want what everybody else has. That can actually take over your heart and your mindset. You can become a completely different person when you allow this to control you. And the Bible says, listen, if it starts to control you, this is not godly wisdom. But such things are earthly, unspiritual, listen to this, demonic. And wherever there is jealousy and selfish ambition, you will find every kind of disorder in your life. Every kind of evil. Listen again, when you live completely by your own selfish ambition, lack of commitment to God and to others, it is worldly, it is unspiritual, and it's demonic. And because it's demonic, you allow these demons to attack your life. Guess what? Your life is going to look like a complete mess. It will be chaotic. There will be disorder in your life when you are living fully for yourself and you do not value your commitment to God or your commitment to other people. But how does lack of commitment make you selfish? The truth is, you won't humble yourself. And I believe that God is speaking to somebody in here, maybe somebody online, because you recognize that. You recognize that maybe right now you're in a situation where God keeps telling you it's time to humble yourself. But it's hard. And maybe you grew up in a family where you didn't want to see tears because tears made you weak, and you didn't want to do all these things and forgive other people. You want to be hard. You want to let everybody know you're independent and you have this strength. But God may break you sometimes because you're not in control. Who's in control? He is. You have no clue what he's doing right now in that situation. By you humbling yourself with somebody else, that may save their life. You don't know. But you can know that what God is telling you to do is always good, always. But when your goals only become self-centered, your commitments to others can become cheap because you're only based on how you feel that day. That's not true commitment. Have you met somebody that will tell you, yes, today I'll commit to this, but the next day they don't because they don't feel like it anymore? What happens to your trust? Trusting that other people can be there for you. When you live to get whatever you want, this is how self-centered people live. Lack of commitment. And guess what? Because like I said, a lot of times we look at their life, we're like, God, they have everything, and look at my life. Yeah, but in the end, they may have everything they thought they wanted, yet still feel empty and depressed. You want to know why? God's not in it. And they can't carry it with them afterwards. But what you have in the presence of God is more special. Listen to this. Proverbs chapter 18, verse 1. He who willfully separates himself from God and man and seeks his own desire, He quarrels against all sound wisdom. The truth is, you cannot serve two masters. You will love one, you will hate the other. You cannot serve God and your own selfish ambition. You will become lost and self-centered, and even when you show up in the presence of God, it will all be about you. And as soon as you get it, you're done with God. That breaks my heart. And it kills me as a pastor to see people come in here broken, and then God just does all these miracles, and they're so excited, and then they disappear because they thought they got what they wanted. But it won't last if God's not in it. Luke chapter 16, verse 13. No one can serve two masters. You will hate one, you will love the other. You will be devoted to one, you will despise the other. You cannot serve God and be enslaved to money. You cannot serve God and be enslaved to your own flesh, your own desires, the things that you worship over God. Do you worship God or do you worship this world? What do you put first in your own life? Are you committed to the Lord and what he has for you? Because the devil will try to blind you and he will harden your heart. Because if he can convince you that this is what you can get living in rebellion, then you start to hate God for standing in the way. You see the temptation there. You see what he does. It's all pretend. The devil cannot give you what you want. Only God can. Only God can. And this is the danger of a lack of commitment with God. But I want to give you hope too. I want to encourage you today as well. So point B is this. The value of commitment will teach you to become selfless. The value of commitment will teach you to become selfless. Let's be honest, this is an everyday battle. I know sometimes coming in church, it can be easy to pretend we're perfect and pretend that, life is good, but it's an everyday battle to love people. It is an everyday battle to deal with people and to forgive people, especially when they have hurt you very bad. But what did Jesus tell us to do? And Jesus shocked everyone when he said this. In Matthew chapter 22, verse 37 through 39, Jesus said, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And I believe that they've heard that before, so that didn't shock them. But then Jesus keeps going. And by the way, a second is equally as important. Love your neighbor as yourself. I imagine the first one, they're like, yeah, I can love God with it. Love who? Love Bill over there? I can't do that. Hey, Bill. You're like, I hope nobody's named Bill in here. If so, I apologize. But it can be hard. It's an everyday battle. It means you have to be in the presence of God to be able to humble yourself to see the will of God take place in your life. You can't be all about you. You have to be committed to the Lord. God, I don't want to talk to them, but I want your will to be done. And I know that in the end, that is better because when I stand before you, I want to hear those words, good job, my faithful servant. It's not worth it to be selfish or lack of commitment. God wants you to be committed because he is committed to you. This is his character. And this also means not turning your back on God when life gets hard. When you don't understand what you're going through, it's not God's fault. It is not God's fault. But God will always be there for you. And in the same way, when people hurt you, do not turn your back on them. Do not turn your back on the people that you have committed yourself to. I don't know. I feel like sometimes saying those things, so in your head, your thoughts, you may be thinking, but Pastor, I'm tired. Like I've tried. I've tried to love this person, all right? I've tried to forgive, and I've tried to communicate and all these things, and I just don't have it in me. What is the point of doing this? Last week, my family was blessed to go to Disney World and Universal Studios with some great friends. And I kept telling the people back there, I really missed y'all. And everybody's like, yeah, it looks like you missed us at Disney World. I really did. I missed being here. And even though it was a vacation, you know that if you go to Disney or any theme park, it's not much resting, right? You know that you're running, you're knocking people out of the way. We went the day after Christmas, one of the busiest times out of the year. And as soon as we arrived to Universal, it was like this, like, where are my kids? Is everybody together? We brought out a stroller I haven't seen in years. And at first they complained about it. Later on, they're like, I want in the stroller. And I tried to get in it too. Just being honest with you, it looked good. But we were there all week. We went to Universal, we went to Disney, and then the last day we're like, let's go back to Universal. We'll make it a short day. Well, we didn't make it a short day because we wanted to ride every ride. By the way, you should be proud of me. I rode every roller coaster, okay? Y'all know I'm afraid of heights. I don't do that. I did that for my family and because of faith. I believe the impossible. So, but at the end, okay, so we're on one side of the park. I have the stroller, and we're trying to get to this last ride, and then we're going home. We're going to pack up late, head out the morning after. And so we're sitting there. The train, we were going to take this train to the other side of the park. It stops working, or it's taking forever, and everybody decides, hey, it may be quicker just to walk all the way on the other side of the park. I'm cool with that. And at that exact moment, that's when my precious little princess decides to get out of the stroller, and she looks at me with those puppy dog eyes and her arms lifted like, Daddy, I want to be held. At that exact moment. Now, if you know my little girl, you know that right now she's a little bit of a mama's girl. It's just a phase. Don't worry. It will pass. And so any opportunity that I get to get her attention and love, like, I take it. I'm serious. I take it. I picked her up. I threw the stroller to Christy. You got that. And I had her, and I'm like, I've been working out just for this moment right here so I can get to the other side of the park with my baby girl. My arms might fall off, but I got her. And the whole way, I'm like, please, Lord, help me, help me. I got this. We get on the other side of the park where the ride is. I put her down. My arm is dead, and she's so happy to ride the ride. And she will never remember this. It is forever up here, let me tell you that. But I started to think about that. And I feel like God hit me. What did I learn that type of love from my Heavenly Father? His commitment to me. There have been so many times in my life I felt stuck on the other side. So many times in my life, I felt like I didn't have the energy or the strength to get to there, to the promise, to the miracle. And I sat there, but I realized it's when I lifted my arms that the Heavenly Father would always pick me up. And the same is for you. God will always lift you up out of the darkness that you are in. And if you trust him and believe, he will always lead you to the other side of where you need to be. And the best part about it, his arms don't get tired. He doesn't get weak. It doesn't happen. He is always there and always strong and always good. Listen, I want you to understand, do not make commitments based on how you feel that day. Make commitments so that you never stop believing in what God is about to do. It should keep you going when you make a commitment. Don't look at it about your feelings, but what God has spoken. I'm committed to get to the other side, and I know that when I'm weak, he will hold me and get me there. And there will be people that hurt you. Listen, your job is not to hurt them back. Your job is to forgive. Your job is to give it over to the Lord and show them grace. And I know it. I know they may have hurt you really bad, but listen, when you don't forgive, when you don't give it over to the Lord, that is walking in rebellion. Do not walk that route against God. How can God bless you if you allow your heart to be hardened and no longer listen to the grace that he shows you every single day? Do not allow somebody else's actions to harden your heart with the Lord. You hear me? Don't allow somebody else's actions, what they did. Let God handle it and be right with the Lord so that you can still trust the blessing and the promise that he has for you. The battle of commitment had just begun for Moses and the people of Israel. Though God had spoken it to happen, the Pharaoh, his stubborn, selfish heart would not listen, even though God showed his power over and over again with the 10 plagues that happened in Egypt. And before I get into the word, let me share this with you as well. Moses already knew the Pharaoh was going to deny him. Did you know that? Have you ever looked at the conversation that Moses had with God? Every time he was in the presence of God, God would tell him, hey, the Pharaoh will not listen. He's going to harden your heart. Every time Pharaoh told him no, God kept reminding Moses of the promise, keep doing it. The same for you. Every time the world tells you no and tries to break you down, get back into the presence of God so that you can hear his yes. And you have hope in that yes, and you keep moving forward. And again, God will also reveal what the enemy has planned against you. But if you know the story, you know that 10 plagues came upon Egypt for Pharaoh's stubborn heart until he finally submitted to God. But let me ask you this, why 10? Why 10 plagues? Why did it take 10? There's something special about the number 10 out of the Bible. The number 10 represents a few things: God's fullness, God's divine completion, and it also represents God's authority over mankind. So let me give you a few examples of how we know this. First of all, let me ask you this. In Exodus chapter 20, how many commandments did God give Moses upon the stone tablets? 10. I said 10, I pointed at 5. There you go. 10. And this shows the fullness of God's moral law over mankind. Let me give you some more examples. What percentage are we to give to God of our tithe? 10%. Leviticus chapter 27, verse 32. For every tithe of the herd of flock, whatever passes under the shepherd's staff, the 10th one shall be the holy one unto the Lord. But here's something I thought was super interesting, because again, the number 10 represents God's divine completion. And did you know from Adam to Noah, 10 generations had passed? And it's all recorded out of Genesis chapter 5. I'm not going to read that, but you can look at it later. 10 generations passed from Adam to Noah. And then after Noah, from Noah to Abraham, guess what? 10 more generations had passed. The number 10 out of the Bible, God uses to show his authority over mankind. And unfortunately, because of Pharaoh's heart being so stubborn and not listening, it took 10 plagues on Egypt. And the last one was devastating, for him to finally humble himself and listen to what the Lord was stating. And so for the rest of the sermon, I want to share 3 points with you to help you understand the value of your commitment to God and also to help change your life for the better, okay? I'm going to give you 2 warnings first, and then the last will give you hope. The first point is this: commitment to the world over God is dangerous. Oh, it seems very simple. We should all know that. But I'm going to dive deep into this, because guess what? The truth is, you're committed to something. Whether you know it or not, you are always committed to something. You are either committed to God and you put God first, or you're committed to money, or you're committed to fame, or you're committed to your position, or maybe just attention. You want everybody to know about you. You are committed to something, and the Egyptians were the same way. They were committed to their idols. And what's interesting about the 10 plagues as well is that each plague that came upon Egypt, guess what? Was a direct insult to the gods that they worshiped. Did you know that? Each plague that God sent was a direct insult to the gods, the idols that they worship. The first plague that we see is out of Exodus chapter 7. Exodus chapter 7, verse 20, where Moses uses Aaron to turn the Nile River into blood. So Moses and Aaron did just as the Lord had commanded them. As Pharaoh and all of his officials watched, Aaron raised his staff and struck the water of the Nile, and suddenly the whole river turned into blood. This was God's direct attack against the idol Happy. Happy wasn't very happy after that. And you would think the Pharaoh would see a situation like that and be like, okay, we got to submit ourselves to the Lord. But have you ever met anybody with a prideful heart? Stubborn? It doesn't matter what you show them, what you put in front of them, they will not listen. Their ears are closed and they are blind to see the presence of God. This is how Pharaoh's heart was. And he had these magicians, and he thought that they could do the same tricks. Guess what? Counterfeit. pretend. They pretended that they were able to do the exact miracles and plagues that God was sending. Does this sound familiar? What are we to look out for in the future or right now? 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 9. The man, when the Antichrist comes, he will come to the work of Satan with what? With counterfeit power. Counterfeit power and signs and miracles. And again, Satan will pretend to be able to give you what you want. But it will not last. It will not fulfill. It is all counterfeit. There's no substance to it. Satan does not have the authority that God has. They are not equals. I need you to understand that because the world will tell you that. They are not equals. God is above all, above all. But in Exodus chapter 7, verse 22, the magicians did the same trick, or at least in the eyes of Pharaoh. But again, the magicians of Egypt used their magic and they turned water into blood. So Pharaoh's heart remains hard, and he refused to listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had predicted. So Moses was not surprised, because what did it say? God had already predicted this. God had already told him that Pharaoh would not listen, so he was not shocked. He did not decide to give up. But what I love about this, because we miss this, they kind of did the same trick, but did you know for 7 days, the Egyptians were not able to stop the water throughout Egypt from being unstable to drink? For 7 days, they can copy the trick a little bit, but they can stop what God was doing. Your enemies can't stop what God is doing. Your enemies can. And they'll think that they have the same power. They don't. They'll think they have the same authority. They don't. But listen, the strength that you feel is not in you, but in the authority of God that lives inside of you. Each plague was a direct insult to the idols of Egypt. God also sent a plague of frogs that came through the land, and this was an attack against the goddess of fertility who had a frog's head. And then eventually, what I love about this, God sent a plague of the ground, and it says lice and flies were everywhere. Imagine, everywhere you look, all over you, just sores from this lice and flies all over the land. And eventually, Pharaoh comes to his magicians, and the magicians are like, hey, look, we can't do this. We can't do this. We can't do what Moses is doing. In fact, we don't have the power to stop it. And the magicians themselves said, this must be the finger of God. The enemy recognized this is the power of the one true God. It's not a trick. Exodus chapter 8. Verse 18 and 19, Pharaoh's magicians tried to do the same thing with their secret arts, but this time they failed. And the gnats covered everyone, people and animals alike. And they said, this is the finger of God. The idols could not protect them, and the idols of this culture will not protect you. And that's why God says, be committed to me. I'm the only thing that will last and protect you and show you the love that you deserve. Be committed to God, not this world. Point 2 is this. Going back on your commitments will always bring pain. Going back on your commitments will always bring pain. Some of you have experienced this very well. Some of you know what it's like to have somebody who told you that they would love you, that they'd always be there for you, that they would never hurt you. And then how did it feel when they did? How did it feel when a best friend or a loved one backstabbed you in the back and you're like, God, who can I trust anymore? I hear these comments all the time. How do I grow to love people when I don't like people? Because they've hurt me. And God, you're telling me to love people that want to talk bad about me and don't care about if I advance or have anything in my life. They don't care about me. Why should I care about them? Because you're not committed to them. You're committed to God. And when you commit yourself to God, then you show them the character of God. And you love them because you love God first. And He knows it's hard. He knows it, but He's working something on the inside of you so that you can feel a peace that you have been praying for. But this is the hard part. humbling ourselves before him. But trust me, every time you break a commitment, it will bring pain into your life. Do you realize that this was the character of Pharaoh? This was his character, to always break his commitments. A lot of times, a lot of us have missed this. He would actually go to Moses and say, Moses, if you just pray to your God and take this plague away, then I'll release your people. He lied to Moses over and over and over again. Why? Because he did not value his word. He just wanted what he wanted in his own life. He was self-centered. He was blind to what God was doing. Listen, look at this. Exodus chapter 8, verse 28. Pharaoh said, all right, go ahead. I'll let you go into the wilderness to offer sacrifices to the Lord your God. But do not go too far. Hurry, pray for me. This is the Pharaoh. Now remember, when he first met Pharaoh, I don't know the Lord, I don't know you. But now Pharaoh is begging. Hey, pray for me. Pray that these things go away. And every time Moses went to pray, God released that plague. But God, guess what? God also revealed to Moses that Pharaoh's heart would become hard again. And he would tell you no. And that's exactly what happened over and over again. Exodus chapter 8, verse 31 and 32. And the Lord did as Moses asked, and he caused a swarm of flies to disappear from Pharaoh, his officials and his people. Not a single fly remained. But Pharaoh again became stubborn, and he refused to let the people go. Let me ask you this. Is this your commitment with God today? And be honest with yourself. It used to be my commitment. I remember God just really punching me in the face and telling me that every time that I came to him, it was to get something. God, I'm here. Yeah, but you want a relationship, or you want a blessing, or you want to get out of this situation. And he wants to know your fears and what you're going through. But there is no substance when all you want is the miracle without God's presence. A miracle cannot exist or last without the presence of God. And you must seek the presence of God first for the changing to happen on the inside, because then you'll always know how good he is. And trust him. It was God working on Pharaoh, showing him his authority. And Moses knew it was not going to be easy. But again, Moses was committed to the Lord and what God had spoken. And the 10th plague was a direct attack against Pharaoh and his heart. Did you know that the Egyptians, they worshiped the Pharaoh? They believed that the Pharaoh was a god. And the Pharaoh himself believed that he was a god. He believed that he was the son of Ra, the sun god of Egypt. He believed that he had the same authority as God. And so it was time to humble him. But listen, God warned him over and over and over and over and over again, but he did not listen until it was too late. And the Spirit of God came through the land of Egypt. And the cries that night and that morning of every firstborn child that was put down by the Spirit of God because of the stubborn heart of Pharaoh. And we read that and we're like, God, that's a little much. I mean, is that cruel of God to do such a thing? Do you realize that in the land of Egypt, they were already sacrificing their children to the idols that they worshiped? In fact, according to some Jewish texts, there's a theory that some of the sacrifices of the babies, they would put the bones in their walls of their home. And there's this idea that when the Spirit of the Lord went that night in the land of Egypt, those bones fell to the floor, showing the authority of God. Where God was saying, stop living this way. Stop sacrificing my creation. Stop worshiping these demonic idols. And God warned them over and over and over and over and over again. How many times does God have to warn you? How many times does it take for you to listen to what God is speaking over you, to let it go before pain and hurt takes place in our life. And listen, it happens because we walk away from God. When we're in the presence of God, he protects us. But when we walk away, we follow the enemy. You cannot serve two masters. God was showing his judgment on the Egyptians. A hardened heart against God is the most dangerous thing you can know. Listen to this. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 18. Their minds are full of darkness, and they wander far from the life that God gives. But because they have closed their minds and hardened their hearts, they're against me. I don't want that for you. And so I want you to leave today with peace, with hope, with forgiveness, and knowing the presence of God. Here's my last point. That's a good one. Commitment to God will always save you. Commitment to God will always save you. No matter where you've been, no matter what you've been through, no matter what decisions you made in the past, your commitment to God, giving your life over to Christ, he has saved you by his blood. Because did you notice that the plagues did not attack the Israelites? They were protected. In fact, at Exodus chapter 9, verse 4, when God sent a plague against the livestock, God said specifically, my people will be protected. Listen to this, Exodus 9:4. But the Lord again will make a distinction between the livestock of the Israelites and that of the Egyptians, and not a single one of Israel's animals will die. And when the firstborn of Egypt were taken, horrific tragedy that took place in the land of Egypt. And it wasn't just the Egyptians, even the animals. If you read the text, even their firstborns. But the Israelites were protected. Yes, they were protected by God, but listen, don't miss this. They also had to listen to the instructions that God gave to be protected. They had to be committed to the Lord and what he was about to do. What did they have to do? God told them, take the blood of a lamb or a goat, and they had to be unblemished and sprinkled upon the doorposts of the house. And they were to believe and prepare for what God was about to do. Then they were given specific instructions on how to eat that sacrifice at night and how to cook it, and believe that God would pass over them with the judgment. Exodus 12:13. God said, when I see the blood, I will pass over you. The plague of death will not touch you when I strike the land of Egypt. Now, understand, what did God tell them to do with the blood of the lamb or the blood of the unblemished goat? Blood on the top, blood on the left, blood on the right. You see? You see what God was doing in the very beginning? God was showing them Jesus will come and he will fulfill this. The feast of the Passover. For Jesus' body, the Lamb of God, will pay the ultimate sacrifice upon the cross and shed his blood, so God's judgment will always pass over you as a believer in Christ. From the very beginning, God is speaking to you and crying out to you. Will you be committed to him? Will you give your life over to him to be saved, to believe that he can still do the impossible in your life? I'm gonna ask you to stand up right here, because I get it. Life is hard, and you may feel beat down today. But humble yourself. Humble yourself. Stop trying to hurt people. Stop trying to get back at people. That is not your job. And God will reveal to the enemy what he has done wrong or what she has done wrong. But you just trust that what God is doing right now in your life is good. And you walk in obedience, because Jesus died so that he may pass over the judgment, and you are redeemed and you are saved. Ephesians chapter 1, verse 7. He is so rich in his kindness and his grace that he purchased our freedom with the blood of his son and forgave us of our sins. stay committed to God. Stay committed to God. Somebody hurts you, stay committed to God. Somebody talks bad about you, stay committed to God. Your situation doesn't look good, stay committed to God. God is telling you to give, but you don't have it, stay committed to God. When you don't know the answers, stay committed to God, because God does, and He will provide, and you must first believe so that you can enter into the promised land.
Hey guys, this is Pastor Bobby Chandler, and I just want to say thank you so much for watching today's message. We pray that it blessed your life, but do me a favor, before you just click off of YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our channel and also ring that bell so that you get notifications on the next sermon or any announcements that we have going on. I also want to say thank you for being a faithful partner with Authentic Church. Because of your giving, we are able to bless and impact the people around us every single week. So we love our Authentic family, and thank you today for joining us.